Hey, welcome to the end of season report. I am Crunk Chocolate. EOSR is part of Shades of Blue's content season, bringing you an episode every other day throughout the summer. Where other podcasts go on holiday or vacation, we continue to bring you a wave of content from us over here at Shades of Blue. We just love you so much, Shady Gang. The end of season report is where I bring a correspondent from each club in the Premier League, and we talk about the 2023-24 campaign. There are 5 categories: kits, manager, squad, supporters, and season. Each category will be graded on the American grading scale, and naturally, we will dissect the reasonings for the grade. Sounds easy enough, no? Today, we have a conversation about Tottenham. Today's guest representing Tottenham Depot. Shout out to them. I'm sure you're expecting, a nice English accent. Nah, baby, we out here. We got 2 Yanks talking football. And
absolutely,
nice. Yeah, let's go. You hear that? This is American accent over here. Shout out. It's Memorial Day. I said, nah, get these Brits out of here. We can't be having that nonsense on a day like this. Salute to the red, white, and blue.
No question about it, man. Let's keep it all American on this Memorial Day.
Yes,
absolutely.
Let's go. And so today, Shady Gang, you hear the voice. Let's just go ahead and give some love to him. Shady Gang, please give it up for Andrew.
Thanks for the love, my friend. Thanks for the love. I appreciate it.
It's happening twice. I didn't turn off the loop. Hey,
double applause. I'll take it.
So yeah, how are you? How's your week beginning? This episode will come out later, but for you listening now, we're recording at 2 Central on a Monday. Yeah, this is a great way to start the week for me, is talking a little bit of football. So how are you doing?
Everything's good, my friend. It's we normally do our podcasts on Sundays, so I'm coming fresh off of that, and I'm always ready to talk football in general, and specifically talk Spurs. It's been an exciting time for our squad, and an exciting time, An exciting season just wrapped up. So, I'm in some ways at the end of a Premier League season, I'm ready for it to be over because it's such a long grind. But with this season, I'm kind of already looking forward to seeing what happens this summer and seeing how this team kicks on into next season. So I'm excited that you've given me the chance here to come and talk about it a little bit.
Of course. And with the placing 5th, obviously going to get some European football. And I love Ange. You definitely got some players on the club that I respect and enjoy. One who I actually have a take on him that is pretty contrary to what everybody else feels. So I'm excited to talk about that later. But first, let's get to know a little bit more about you, Andrew. Let listeners, viewers know who is Andrew? What does he do? Like podcast, obviously football wise, and plug yourself.
Yeah, man. I live out in Phoenix, Arizona area, and originally from Baltimore. As you can see by the hat, I'm representing my Baltimore Orioles with the cap today. But rocking Spurs all the time. We've got a crew here on the Tottenham Depot, which we produce every week from all across the country. We've got guys in Iowa. We've got Caroline down in San Antonio, Texas. We've got our boy Todd out in San Diego. Dakota's is back east. So we've got it spread across the country, and we're just all massive Spurs fans. And we got together a few years ago, started this podcast, and we've kind of just really, it's a friendship thing. We've become friends through doing the pod, and that's kind of how we treat Spurs. We treat Spurs as a way to connect friends. And then we all kind of just share our opinions, share our listeners' opinions, and talk Spurs every week. It's what bonds us. It's what's made us friends. We've done trips over to London. We did a big trip last year over to London in March to see a couple games. And it's just kind of, that's what football is all about for me, is friendship and camaraderie. And we've kind of used the podcast as a way to, utilize that friendship, and it's something that connects us. So, we can be found at Tottenham Depot on all social channels. We've got Twitter, we've got Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, all the different things. And then folks can follow me if they want to at A Stetka. I'm on all those places as well. So.
Oh, y'all are on Blue Sky as well. Okay, let me hop.
Yeah, man,
we'll have to follow
we're
you.
popping it out there. Absolutely,
Yes,
we're out there.
When it first came out, we were like, all right, let's just make the account and just watch how it's growing and doing its thing. And we just pop in. I feel like every couple weeks or so, and just like, we're still here, guys. Check out things.
Yeah, I pretty much just use it to like push the pod out, because I know there's some people who are only on that social account, especially in the Spurs community. There was a real push to move people off of certain social media accounts after certain people took it over. I won't say anything more than that, but I just want to give people the content where they are. So we just try and push out the content to them wherever they're at.
Respect. And when I created Shades of Blue, none of us knew each other. It was a thing that I had a video chat with each person for like 7 to 15 minutes. And that was like Wednesday and Thursday. That Sunday we recorded. And from there, yes, we become friends. We've been doing it for just over 2 years now. We met with each other in Chicago in April for the 2 years. And so I completely understand the whole thing where you start off with being like pod mates, and now all of a sudden you're a family. And yeah, it's I couldn't imagine life without those dudes. And yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, we love it. I mean, we're in a group chat, we're in a WhatsApp chat pretty much all day. Yep. It's just always going, and whether it's Spurs related, football related, other sports, we talk life, we talk family, we share things. So it's become a really cool thing. Our podcast was actually kind of birthed out of a different podcast that went away. The guy who was running it didn't want to do it anymore, but wanted to kind of keep the rights to it. So everybody kind of looked to me as, hey, can we keep this going? And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's start another one. So we just kind of started from scratch a couple of years ago and have been rebuilding the following that we had on the previous podcast. We've added to it. We brought in Caroline, who I mentioned, who originally was brought on to kind of give us a little bit more insight into the Spurs women's team, because we didn't really have a lot of knowledge about Spurs women. They were still kind of just coming into the WSL. And now, not only is she, given us great coverage of the Spurs women's team, but she does a great job of just like making us fans. Like we've all become way more invested in the women's side as well. So we're doing great coverage there as well. And, posting everything up on our YouTube page as well. So we're just enjoying it, man. The friendship, the camaraderie, that's what it's all about for me. It's been a really fun time. So
you'll have to link us up with Caroline, because we cover city women as well. Tom Baum, he was brought on to our show specifically to help us focus on city women, and he has helped push us in our focus and love towards, we call them our baby blue baddies. So that's our name of our segment. That's what we call them. They're fantastic. We do watch alongs for them. Match
that's awesome.
Reviews. We do all the things for them. They obviously have a segment in our weekly episodes as well. We're trying to actually start a WSL podcast in the fall that will be a part of our network as well. So it's that's a thing we're working on right now.
Well, I don't want to short Caroline either, because she does a great job talking about the men's team as well. She's a massive fan of the men's team.
Oh yeah, of course.
She also does a separate podcast specifically about Spurs women. It's called N17 Women. She does it with a couple of people over in England. So folks, if you're interested in more women's football and Spurs women specifically, they cover it really well in there. But we talk about them on our podcast as well.
Cool. At
the Tottenham Depot. So she does a really good blog every week on Spurs, covers both the men's and women's teams. She's also a Bayern fan, which we give her a little bit of crap about. There's obviously been a lot of Bayern Tottenham connections over the last 12 months or so. Yes. So we've had a lot of fun with that, but no, we love Caroline. She wasn't, she was kind of brought in after we started it, but she's molded right into the family, and we love having her, and she's become a really great friend. So yeah, it's really expanded our coverage of it as well. So.
And I live in Iowa. So who is this podmate that lives in Iowa?
Scott. So Scott was up in Seattle for years. He's back in Iowa. He grew up in the Des Moines area. And I'll put you in touch with Scott too. Scott's great stuff. And yeah, they're kind of, I think they're now splitting time between Iowa and Seattle, but I know they had roots up in Seattle. They've got roots in Iowa. Cool. They're kind of all over the place too. So yeah, I'll have to let you know about Scott.
Yeah. I can always use more footy people just in my general vicinity.
Absolutely. We all can for sure.
Right. All right. Well, let's get started talking about the kits, Tottenham's kits. The whole thing is with y'all it's supposed to be just like a white kit. And I feel like most teams, like fans, they get pretty upset when you get a little crazy with them. And to me, this kit doesn't seem like crazy, but I feel like maybe to some Tottenham fans, this might be a lot, especially with the red AIA. So what are you thinking? How are you feeling? What are your thoughts on the kit?
I'm kind of a traditionalist when it comes to Tottenham kits. I like the white kit. I like the home kit. I like whenever they can wear the white kit. I don't like them to get too crazy, but what you mentioned, the red AIA, that is a real point of contention with a lot of Spurs fans. Obviously, you don't want to be wearing red as a Spurs fan. So it is interesting to hear the different perspectives about the red logo, but I don't mind this home kit at all. It's been hard for me to find a home kit over the years that I've really super disliked. Now I've seen some, we've seen some leaks of like future kits perhaps, and they tend to try to do some funky stuff with the sleeves or, design patterns and that kind of thing. And I know we're going to talk about some of the other kits too. Really where I have a problem with any Tottenham kit right now is actually not with Tottenham itself or the colors, it's with Nike, because I feel like Nike is just doing really, really tough stuff with some of their kits. You can see if you're watching, I'm rocking an older Under Armour Spurs kit today. I told you I'm originally from Baltimore and I'm an Under Armour guy through and through. I really loved when Spurs rocked the Under Armour. Since they switched to Nike I guess it's been about 7 or 8 years now. I think they've gone a little bit downhill, but with this white home kit, I'm still in the A category. I love a clean white home kit. The red AIA is, kind of the only thing preventing it from being an A+ for me, but it's not as bothersome for me as it is for some fans. So I might be a little bit in the minority there.
And honestly, when it comes to holding grudges, pettiness, I am a big fan of that. So
sure.
The Tottenham fans not liking red and not wanting red anywhere on their kit, respect 100%.
I get it. I do get it for sure. No question about it. Now, did you want to talk the away kit next?
Yeah, we can keep it moving.
Unless you had something else on the home kit.
Oh, no, not at all. No.
So the away kit is where I had a real issue this year, and not as much as when we get to the third kit, but the collar, and there was like a fluorescent in the badge. And I like that it's not red. I mean, you got the dark navy with the kind of little bit of off blue, and I don't mind blue for an away. It's good. As I mentioned, I'm rocking an older like light blue with dark blue patterns. I like a blue for an away. It's not bad, but this one just, the collar is what ruined it for me. And then the spikes in the neck, and this is a Nike thing. Again, it's not so much on Spurs. It's a Nike design thing, and it's been an issue for me. So I went C+ for the away kit this year, just because it's not one that I was interested in. And even when the players were wearing it, it just looks a little too, it doesn't look athletic. It looks almost a little too formal with that collar. I don't mind a collar in certain instances, but this one just looks a little too, it looks like they're setting up to go to church or something instead of, instead of out to play some football. So only a C+ on the away kit for me.
I was going to ask about that, because people do feel strongly about collars on kits, and I am a person who's a fan of them, actually. Well, I wouldn't say a fan of them, because I'm not saying throw them on every kit, but it won't turn me off from a kit.
I feel the same way, actually. It won't turn me off, but it's got to be done properly. And I just felt like this one on our away kit this year, it just looks a little bit too, it doesn't look athletic enough for me. It looks a little bit too formal, and that's where I don't really love it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And what was the grade for that? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I went C+ for the away kit. That's passing grade, but I'm not on board.
Yes.
But when we shift to the third kit, this is where I'm going to have real problems. So the third kit only gets The third kit only gets a D for me this year. And part of this, I'll be honest, is results based, because anytime I can think now Spurs don't wear their third kit very often, but when they did this year, I felt like it did not go well at all. This color is technically called taupe haze, and I don't know what they're trying to fool. It's like a brown sandy color, but it also it kind of messes with you, because when you're watching it on television, it almost changes colors as you're watching it through the game. My wife even caught a little bit of a game that I was watching earlier this year where they were wearing the third kit, and she could not tell what color it was because it looked different every time they showed it. And it was very different. And then the real killer, I'm gonna go back to really bagging on Nike here. The neck spikes that they've been doing, and it's not just a Tottenham thing. I've seen it on other Nike kits as well. It looks awful. It looks really, really bad. Now last year we had a third kit. Last year we had a third kit that was, we called it the scuba kit, because it was that purple with the yellow trim, and it looked like a wetsuit. It looked like scuba gear, and that had the awful neck spikes too. I need Spurs to be done with these really bad neck spikes, because the taupe haze, I don't care what color you're putting the neck spikes on, they look awful. So please get them out of my football shirts in general. They're so bad. I don't want them. Get rid of the neck spikes. I don't need them. So
I just the neck spikes.
they're so bad. And look, we made fun of them a lot with the scuba kit. Like we have the one guy on our podcast on Tottenham Depot, Dakota. God love him. I love Dakota so much. He has the worst kit opinions, and he loved the scuba kit. He loves the neck spikes, and we all give him so much hell about it, because he just has like, anytime he says he likes a kit, I know I can't like that kit, because his kit opinions are awful. We bag on him all the time about it. So shout out Dakota. Have your neck spike, keep them. I don't want them. They're not for me. So
what I will say is that scuba kit, the Tottenham women looked way better in the kit than the men did.
Yes,
as the men looked horrendous in it, but for some reason, the women, they looked great in it. But other than that, yeah, you're right. And there have been multiple kits that people have mentioned. I don't like this kit because I don't have good experiences with it. The kit that Spurs wore when they defeated Ajax in the Champions League semifinal years ago was not a well-liked kit at all. People thought it was very strange. And then the second that match happened and they were wearing that kit, that became an iconic, beloved kit. So you're exactly right. Memories play a lot with our kits here. Getting back to this third kit though, from this year, the taupe haze one, the other kind of downside on it is because of its color, it doesn't matter what skin tone you have wearing it, you're kind of going to bleed into it. And that's because of that color changing thing it does. It's kind of a brownish, sandy, tan color. And it doesn't matter if you're Dejan Kulusevski, who's like a kind of mostly fair-skinned ginger boy like myself, or if you're, Brennan Johnson, who is a more light-skinned, like black guy. Like, it doesn't matter. You're going to kind of blend in. Like it just doesn't look good on pretty much any skin tone. So that's the other part of it, that it was just tough to watch on screen too. It's tough to track. Yes. You kind of blend in to almost into a green pitch even wearing them. It was just a bad kit. So it's a D for me. I was not a fan of the taupe haze this year. Oh, from the top rope, flying elbow.
Get out of here. I don't need them. Give me next year's. I've seen the looks of next year's kits. I don't really love them, but they're going to be better than this year's for sure. This year's.
I was going to say, I can see them. I mean, at least they're on Football Kit Archive. The home, not a fan of. I actually like kind of the striping of the away kit. It looks very relaxed, though. It doesn't really look like a football kit, so I'm interested to see how that's going to look on the footballers. And then the third kit with this weird, like, half collar, because it just looks like it has the collar without actually being a collar. That's interesting. They either revolutionized collars or have made the worst collar ever. We're going to have to see.
Nike just continues their nonsense, and there's nothing I can do about it except accept it. I just got to kind of like take it. But Nike's nonsense knows no bounds for sure when it comes to football games. I'm jealous that this is blasphemous to say. I'm jealous that Arsenal have Adidas because I think Adidas do a really good job with kits in general.
They have been doing well
And
by Arsenal.
I'm jealous of it personally. I mean, I truthfully, like I said, back to Under Armour for me. I'm an Under Armour guy through and through, being from Baltimore, and I thought they did a great job. But if I had a second choice, it would definitely be Adidas. But Nike's just has not been doing it for me the last few years. I need them to make a little bit of a comeback.
And what's our Under Armour and the way that they like create kits and just their feel fit for Tottenham. Like, because Tottenham, all I think of is their kits are always pretty form fitting and everything. And then I think of Under Armour and what Under Armour does. So that link, when they were together, I always was like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I wasn't shocked that they went to Nike because, money, but it did seem like a change.
Even just from a brand perspective, I always think of Tottenham as, they're a big deal. They're a big team, but they're not the big teams. And that's kind of Under Armour to me when it comes to Nike or Adidas and football.
Exactly.
Even Puma, I feel like is higher up. And Under Armour was just kind of hanging down here. That's kind of, I feel like, where Spurs have been for most of their existence, at least most of the time I've been following them. So it's always been like, we're up there. We're one of the big guys, but we're not one of the big guys. And I don't know. There was a little bit of simpatico there.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, well, let's get to Ange Postecoglou, or Big Ange.
Oh, Ange. Yeah.
So I didn't know he was Greek because of the Aussie accent. And so when I looked into it, he was born in Greece, and then when he was 5, his dad moved them to Australia. I'm a huge fan of him, like huge fan, and what he's trying to do at Tottenham. I'm interested in your thoughts on Ange and his performance on the 2023-24 season. I want to let you get going on this because I'm sure we'll dive into it a little bit more deeply.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. When he was hired, nobody really knew too much about him other than he had come from Celtic and had a stint as the Australian national manager a few years back, and has had success, but never at the level of the Premier League, like never at a higher level than really Scottish football. He managed in Japan and had success there as well, but jumping from Scotland to England is a leap, you feel like, and there was a lot of skepticism around him. But honestly, from the first moment he opened his mouth and started speaking in press conferences, everybody pretty much fell in love with the guy. He exuded just an attitude and a changing of an atmosphere that has been desperately needed at Spurs for many, many years. Obviously Spurs have been through it with managers over the last handful of years, from Conte to Mourinho, and even going back to Nuno Espirito Santo for that brief dalliance they had with him following the Mauricio Pochettino years. And there was just a lot of animosity toward the previous couple of managers, and Spurs really needed to get this hire right. And I think they have. He came in, and obviously we were unbeaten in the first 10 matches, and top of the league after 10 matches. And everyone was thinking, holy crap, this is a home run. And then things kind of went haywire in the season, and the Chelsea match in November happened for us. It was a 4-1 defeat in which we suffered like 3 different injuries and had 2 players sent off, and everything kind of changed after that. And the season was really thrown into a lot of turmoil, not only through injury, but through suspensions. And then, come the new year, we had, players going off to AFCON and the Asian Cup, prominent players too, like Heung-min Son, Yves Bissouma, who had started out the year so well. And things just really kind of went in a different direction. And Ange's mettle was tested throughout the season a lot. For this being a first year in the Premier League, I think he did an exquisite job. He really had, I think, way more adversity than you can even imagine a first-year manager in the Premier League having, especially when I haven't even mentioned the fact that literally 2 days before the first match of the season, the club's all-time leading goal scorer walked out the door and went to Germany in Harry Kane. Like he didn't really fully know that was going to happen. I mean, he had a whole preseason with this club thinking, okay, well, Harry's in place, and there are all these rumors, but then Harry Kane leaves 2 days before the first match, and you still manage to guide this team through all the other turmoil it faced aside from Harry Kane leaving, and guide it to a 5th place finish and, get back into Europe after missing out. So like there's so much that can be said about Ange. I could wax poetic for hours about this guy, but I think the biggest thing aside from the success on the pitch is that he feels like a guy that gets it and gets what gets that this is going to be a project. Ever since Mauricio Pochettino left, and obviously left in a way that was just really awkward for a lot of the fans, because many thought that he should have been given the rope and given the time to see through a project, and others were just done. They had seen enough. And they had thought, this guy hasn't won anything. Why is it taking so long? Well, as we're finding out as Spurs fans, it's hard to win things. We haven't won anything in over a decade and a half. I know that's really, it's probably funny for you listening to that, because City has no problem winning things, but it's definitely different when you're a Spurs fan. You feel this emptiness where, there's a lot of banter about lack of trophies over the last handful of years. And I almost have gotten to the point where I'm not beaten down by it anymore. I'm just accepting of it. Yeah, we're the club that hasn't won anything in a really long time, and we've got to be real about that. And I might be slipping a little bit into the supporters section here, but a lot of our fans need to realize that. And I'll bring it back to Ange by saying, I think he does realize that. I think he gets what this club has been through and what this club has experienced, and he's not Conte or Mourinho, where he's going to be coming in and expecting to immediately win the Premier League. Like, that's not how this is going to go with him. And I think that he knows that, and I think he's accepting of that, and he knows that this is a project, and this was only year one of what I personally expect to be like a 4 or 5 year project of him building into a great thing. And I think he has the ability to do that. I've thought it since I first really heard him open his mouth, because of the way he talks. I'm sure your listeners have heard some of the clips of him in press conferences. I would encourage folks to go listen to like a full Ange Postecoglou press conference sometime. Just pick a random one. They're all great, but he's so he's honest about things. He doesn't sugarcoat. He doesn't bullshit people. He's really blunt and honest, and he says what's on his mind, but never in a way that is egotistical like a Conte or Mourinho was, and never in a way that is, I think the thing that got on fans' nerves the most about Conte and Mourinho and those types of managers is how they can sometimes belittle their own players. They demean their own players. They spout off and they say those kinds of things. We got it a lot with Conte. We got it a lot with Mourinho. We got a lot with those guys. And it's an awkward thing, because part of you as a fan believes, yeah, we do need to invest and we do need to get better players, but also, why are you trashing the guys that you're then asking to go out for 90 minutes every week and make the sacrifices that it takes to be successful? So Ange has come in and I think just really changed the tone and changed the mood. And I'm not trying to slip into the supporters section of our discussion here too early, but I'm just hopeful that the fans give him the grace and the time that's required, because this is a large undertaking. I know that I was talking about Spurs kind of being, they're a big club, but they haven't had the success that City or Liverpool or even Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United, all these other clubs have had in the last 15 to 20 years. They haven't had close to that amount of success. So it's going to take time to build yourself to that point. And I think Ange can be the right guy for that job if things go right.
I forgot about that Nuno Espirito time.
We try to as well. Don't worry.
Yes.
We attempt to do the same.
And also the whole like Spursiness of things. I don't necessarily find it funny. I think the way that the creative ingenuity filled ways that Tottenham learns how to, or shows how they can lose, that's funny. But watching a team just manage to slip through it every single year, that's tough. And then Poch, he got 4 or 5 years, something like that, 5.5 years. So Ange, I would expect to get the same. I think when it comes to mentality, Ange is a lot better. I think Ange will be a lot better with man management, but not in the way that the players will like so much. For the same reason where I think the players loved Poch and then ended up stopping listening to him was because he was like coddling, he was comforting and things like that. Ange will be a great person to rely on for support and everything, but he's gonna tell you how it is. Like, if you're struggling, you're going to know you're struggling, and that's going to be tough, but he's also going to want more from you. He's going to get more out of you. And and yes, so many clips from him over this season coming back at media for them trying to come at him about succumbing to the whole Spursiness of things and mentality, and even when they were trying to like belittle him for where he is managed, and he just always says the right thing. He calls out their nonsense and also explains why he should be there always. And good on him for like coming at the fans after the match with City, and you know they started celebrating the whole Arsenal stuff. I mean, I understand it. I'm here for the petty, but as the manager, that is what he has to say. That is absolutely 100% what he has to say.
So this is where I was going to go with you next on this, because obviously you guys were close to it after the City match toward the end of the year, second to last game. This was really awkward. It was awkward for us as fans. It was awkward for us as at the Depot as podcasters even to discuss it. And you know, I can make a distinction, and I know you can as well, Crunk. Like being here in America, like our fans are way different than English fans. Like they've been in it, they've lived in it for their whole lives. We haven't. A lot of them over there were really, really pissed at Ange after that, and a lot of them were really like bemoaning the fact that he just doesn't get it. And I, sitting over here watching all of this play out, was like, no, I think it's them that doesn't get it. And again, not to bleed too much into the supporters thing, but like I like this is the beauty of Ange, is that he's made it so so connected between the supporters and the club itself. That's not something that the previous two managers were able to do very well, just because of who they are, the success that they brought, the personalities that they are. Ange has done it. And when that moment happened after the City match, and we had Spurs fans in that stadium actually applauding and being grateful that Spurs, you know, didn't get any result in that game. I mean, Champions League was still at stake for Spurs in that match. Like they needed a win in order to keep their Champions League hopes alive going into the final match. And look, you'll meet a lot of Spurs fans. You might even be talking to one that thinks that it's probably better that we're only in the Europa League and not the Champions League going into next year. But that doesn't mean you don't still try. That doesn't mean you still don't go after it. And I think that that's what Ange was trying to say. And obviously he can't say it as plainly as I just did, but like he was trying to make the fans realize that you still have to become a winner before you can point and, you know, root for someone else to lose. Like, and there's a difference between that Spursy mindset you talk about. For me, just being the team that roots for other teams to not win, that is Spursy. And that, like, I don't want that moniker. I want to be the team that strives to win, not the team that is only out here rooting for other teams not to win. Like, that's a real problem to me. That's a loser mindset. And I want, like, when you talk about mentality, when you talk about mindset, what Ange has brought to me is that difference. Like, I'm not sure I would have seen Conte or Mourinho. And look, they never really faced this scenario, and not many teams will ever. It was a very awkward scenario where, you know, direct rivals are being able to benefit each other late in the season. But, you know, I wouldn't have seen Conte or Mourinho go into the podium and like addressing it in that way. I would have seen them just kind of blowing it off. But no, Ange was pissed about what happened in that stadium that night. And I think he had every right to be. And I was kind of upset too at the way that our fans reacted, because I want to change that mentality just as much as Ange does. And that's kind of why I'm so bought into Ange. And you hear me like, what, you know, like waxing poetic about the guy, because I do think that he can bring that mentality change and kind of change that. Like that word Spursy, I hate it. Like it's to me, it represents something kind of gross. And I think we've been trying to move away from it for a while. And I do think and hope that Ange is that guy to do it.
Yeah. It's the past. And the whole thing is, I think Ange gets it, but he doesn't care. In fact, he gets it and hates it. And you could just tell from the way that he talked about it, he was like disgusted. He's just like, I don't want to be tied to that. And even like you said, yes, I am not baptized in the entirety that is a lifelong livedness of Tottenham, which is, like you said, very unsuccessful, like ironically so. But I will put on a little cape on for those people celebrating. I do think that naturally you want your team to win, but if they don't, that is a very nice like second prize, is being able to like laugh at Arsenal in the moment. Like, should you maybe wait till the match is over? Yes, like definitely, because like anything could happen from there. I mean, you could still come back. Comebacks have happened. So it's one of those things. As a player, I couldn't imagine hearing that. Like, and that's what I'm saying. That's why I respect what Ange said and did.
Yeah, no question. I always look at it as I can accept the result and be more pleased with the result than I would have been otherwise. But I'm never going to be that, like, I would never root for Arsenal in any scenario, even if it benefited Spurs. Like, I don't want to see them win. I can accept the result. Like, I'm putting the shoe on the other foot here, I'm not going to root for Arsenal, but if eventually down the road somewhere, like them defeating another team benefits Spurs, I'll accept it. I'm going to be fine with that, but I'm not going to openly root for it. That's kind of just where the difference is for me.
Respect. All right. Well, I mean, we'll keep it moving from the manager to the squad. Like you said, started off the season on fire. Competitions, injuries, made things a little tough at the end, but finishing fifth is still great. You have some players on that squad who can ball, who potentially could be on the brink of, at the end, like Hung-min. Like, how are you feeling about him? He looks like he's a person who could play until like forever, but with his game predecessor, I guess, on speed, I don't see him doing the like from one half of the pitch to the other side of the pitch runs like he used to do. So, I mean, obviously he's been able to adjust his style of play. Obviously, Van der Ven, there's some promise on this squad. So what's your grade on the players' performance in the 23-24 campaign?
So I gave the squad as a whole a B+. And look, that's kind of just because they didn't, as a team, get to the heights that I felt like they could have. I mean, we saw, I mentioned earlier in the first 10 matches, this team came together after a preseason with Ange and really played its ass off and just completely changed the dynamic of what we thought this could be in the early going. Like they immediately picked up his style of football and were flying. And as I mentioned, everything kind of changed after that Chelsea match. If you missed that one, it was a doozy. But the squad as a whole, you brought up some players and like, I'll start by talking about Sonny. Sonny's been a strange player to talk about this season because he did lead the team in goals and assists once again. And he took over the captaincy from after Hugo Lloris departed. A lot of people forget Harry Kane was not the captain of Spurs. It was Hugo Lloris, the goalkeeper, who also left. Like, a lot of change has gone on with this club coming into this season. So when I looked at the squad, it's like, oh, well, who's the face that's still around, who's been around the longest? Well, it was Sonny. And I don't think he took on extra burden, but he certainly took on extra responsibility as being the face of this club now. Like, he was always kind of a secondary face behind Harry Kane. And now he was the guy. He was going to be the guy on all the posters. And not that he's not a world-renowned star already, but like, now he's not 1B to Harry's 1A. He's 1A with a bullet. And taking over the armband and, starting the season out so well was a joy. Like, everyone was really on board with it. And then, it kind of after the Chelsea match and then go into the new year, the Asian Cup comes along. He goes off to that. He also dealt with some injuries. I mean, people don't really realize it, but Heung-min Son is on the other side of 30. Like, he's not a young guy anymore. He's been around for a long time. So Sonny had a really good season, 17 goals, 10 assists in the league. Like, those are really good numbers for any top scorer on a team. But the second half of the season was kind of a mystery because he was here, there was injury stuff. There was just a lack of, like you said, that burst. And I don't know if it was because of the injuries and the age and the going away on international duty and the extra burden of a captaincy. But going forward, I'm like, okay, well, is Son beyond it? Is he ever going to be back to 3 years ago Son, or is this the new Son? And he's got to maybe learn a different way, especially in a system that's a little different. I mean, Ange does not play a counterattacking system, which Sonny has thrived in over the years because of that speed that he has. Now he's picking up a different system where he's got to share room behind him with an inverted fullback on the wing, and he's got to do some different things and learn a different style of play. Now, I don't put it past Sonny to learn something new, but maybe it just took a year for him to adapt, and maybe going into next year, like, this is the optimism in my brain. I'm thinking, no, this guy's still got it. You know, I don't care that he's 31 going on 32 with an injury history. Like, this guy can still produce. But at the same time, I'm like, we do need to start thinking about if there's a cliff here and if there's a fall off from him on the other side of 30. So I love Sonny. Everybody loves Sonny. Nobody's rushing him out the door, but like, if there's a cliff coming, we need, I think as fans and as like expectations league wide, we need to be prepared for that possibility. Some of the other guys you mentioned, Van de Ven was, for me, like, he would have been the second choice for me for player of the season behind Christian Romero, his center back partnership. What those two did, it was kind of the most revelatory thing about this team, because it was so bad defensively under two really defensive managers in Conte and Mourinho. Like, they struggled so bad defensively that the kind of reiteration of this defense and this more attacking style was everything to me. And Van de Ven was a huge part of that. Not many people knew much about him coming into the season, but he comes in as a new signing and just kind of hit the ground running. The guy has pace for days. He allows this club really to play the style that it wanted to all season, with that free-flowing attacking football, inverted fullbacks, getting all these bodies up and down the pitch. And Van de Ven's pace allowed them to do that. And the second that he was lost to a hamstring injury in, again, I'll reference it, the Chelsea game, the Chelsea game changed everything, because he got hurt in that match. And from there on, Spurs tumbled from being unbeaten in their first 10 to tumbling down the table a little bit and having to hang on at the end for European football and getting fifth. So Van de Ven is a really, really important part of this squad and this team. And I would be remiss if not bringing him up again, Christian Romero as well, his development as a center back on that right side and a leader. He was named a vice captain behind Sonny, along with James Maddison. Romero's growth in this season was the most impressive thing to me overall from anybody on this squad. You know, he's a big piece of the Argentina setup, obviously a World Cup winner now. And his growth and his development as a center back and a leader on this team was really the key. And the way that he was able to form a partnership with Van de Ven and the fullbacks on the outside, who I can touch on as well, who are also both, you know, very new and young and a big part of this thing. Sure. For me, it's all being kind of built at the back, which I really love. And, you know, just that defense and the development of it through the season was beautiful to me. And when all those four guys, and I'll include the new goalkeeper as well, Guglielmo Vicario, the young Italian, like there's a lot to like about the back five core at this team right now. The fullbacks, Porro and Destiny Udogie, before he went down with an injury at the end of the season, missed the last few games. Those two guys, from an attacking standpoint and even from a defensive standpoint, they got the job done. Like when that back five was intact this season, Spurs had a really good chance to go out and do a business, no matter who was in the midfield or attack, just because they had a solid rock at the back. When it comes to the midfield, you know, the midfield was a jigsaw puzzle all season kind of for this team. There were a lot of moving parts because Rodrigo Bentancur was hurt during different parts of it. James Maddison was hurt during different parts of it. So there was a lot of stop-start for those guys. Ibasuma in the same boat. I mentioned him earlier. He had a phenomenal first 10 games playing kind of in that number 6 role, and then really fell off the map. He was one of the red cards that was picked up in that infamous Chelsea match that I've now mentioned about 17 times during our chat today. He was one of the red cards, as was Romero. So you lose 2 defenders, not only to red cards in that match, but to suspension thereafter. And it really did, like, I'm trying to emphasize for folks who didn't maybe pay as close attention to Spurs this season, why it fell off so badly. It was one match that changed the entire course of the season for us. But Udogie kind of fell off. He was another one that was lost to the Africa Cup of Nations and then came back and was hurt as well at different times. But the midfield, to me, Pat Matasar is the other piece of it that I really love, and I think he can do a job. I'm just not exactly sure what that job is. Like, he can play a little bit more of a 6 role, but he can also get up and get in the attack a little bit. We saw toward the end of the season, in the final couple games, he was playing in like a dual central attacking midfield role with James Madison, which they don't really profile as the same types of players, but he can do that kind of thing, which I really like. So there's a lot of moving parts in the midfield. We're probably going to see the end of the Pierre-Emile Højbjerg era this summer, I would guess, unless for some reason he decides he wants to stick around. But he's a player that I've really appreciated over the years, but it's just, I don't think this is the system for him. So the midfield is a real mystery. I'm trying to look over at my notes here and make sure I'm not even mentioning, or I'm not missing anybody to mention in the midfield. But I think those are pretty much, there's a lot of moving parts.
You nailed it, honestly. I feel, and I could just personally rave about a chunk of your team, so I'm going to try to see if I can do quick notes about this. So Pedro Porro, I hate. There are multiple players in the City football group, fandom, lordom, whatever, that we have lost. Pedro Porro is very high on that list.
That's right. I had totally forgotten about that. I totally forgot he was a City product. Yes,
and if you actually ask him about it, he'll just say next question. So Udogie, I love Udogie. I love him. When so there are players who go to teams and it just feels right and it just pisses me off, and he was one of them, especially with what Ange was trying to do. And then how you were trying to highlight how you fell off of a cliff, defensive troubles. Yeah, there were a good set of games that y'all were playing with a whole back line of wide backs. It was a very interesting and fun to watch because
you don't want Emerson Royale playing center back. Let me tell you,
at all. Trust me, I know, and it was fun to watch. And then when you look at your squad, the age is huge because I was like, yeah, who you got on your squad that's older? Yeah, you got Heung-min Son. Sure. And then you got Ben Davies. Sure. And then I was like, oh yeah. And then Kulusevski. No, he's 23. He just has an old man's game.
and an old man face and all that. He's definitely like a 24-year-old living in a 44-year-old body.
Yeah. And just a lot of your squad is just 26 years and younger with the whole idea that Ange is going to be here for a few years. He's going to be able to work on the squad, and you're not going to need much change. Like you said, Højbjerg, he's going to go. You could add in a player. Hopefully Bentancur can stay healthy because he has a lot of talent. I understand what they want to do with him. And Yves Bissouma, his injuries, that kind of like stopped him, and it looked like he potentially was going to have a big season this year. Yeah, Brennan Johnson, I don't like his face, but I respect him as a baller. He has a punchable face.
There's a lot of it's interesting you bring up the youth, and I'm delighted to hear that opinion from a different perspective. But there's also like I really liked what the club did with Udogie, for example, and you brought him up. Like they bought him and then immediately loaned him back to, I believe it was Udinese that he was playing with, and he played the whole season with them last year, and then came over this year to join our club after the 1 year loan. And they've done that kind of thing with some players, and it's really worked out. To you buy them early when they're real young. I mean, Destiny Udogie's 20 years old. Pat Matasar is 20 years old. They've done this. They did it with Sar as well. They've done it this year with an 18-year-old Lucas Bergvall, who's been playing in Sweden, who is supposed to be the next big thing. And he's going to come over and be on the senior squad next year as an 18-year-old. I don't think there's any expectation that they're going to loan him back out. I think they know that he's ready to step up and be in this role. And it's happened now over the last few years with some of these guys. And it's really an encouraging way to build your team out with youth. And it's cool that they're doing it. At the same time, they will need to go out in the summer window and buy some other reinforcements, because it's not like there's this youth movement and you're not 100% sure that all these guys are going to click. Now you think you have with a couple, but you cannot keep relying on that to work and just bringing guys through. You mentioned a few names like Bentancur. I'm not 100% sure that he's long for it. He's a great presser and works in this system, but the injury stuff scares me. Even a guy like Kulusevski. I mean, I love Dan Kulusevski, but there's been some signs that he's needed to adapt. He's really known as a right wing, but was playing a lot more in the midfield this year when there were injuries, and was even stepping up and played like a false nine role in our final game of the season and looked great, scored twice. So can he adapt and learn? Like, I think there's a lot of these guys, especially when you get to that midfield and attack and forward area where this was the first year in this system, and now we need to see who's long for it. Like they may do, but they brought in James Madison. I think he's long for it. I think he can do this, but is his body going to hold up as well over the long term, or is he just like a stopgap piece? So there's a lot of different parts of this squad that I think can be good and improve and like make the next jump, the next leap, take us from 5th into cracking maybe that top 3 and really challenging and pushing a team like Manchester City for the title. Like that's the ultimate goal. That's what we want. And I'm interested to see what pieces from this first year last into the second and hopefully third and fourth and fifth years of Ange, because this is a really good start, but the squad as a whole definitely needs some reinforcements and improvements. And that's all up to Ange for me. And that's a big part of why I'm so excited for this summer and next year as well.
All right. Yeah, this is great because I don't talk to many Tottenham people, so being able to get this thorough into this club has been a very nice conversation. And we can get to what you had linked towards, you have hinted towards as the supporters. Grade how understanding and supportive the general fan has been in this 23-24 campaign.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I gave the supporters a C+ for this season because look, the first 10 games were what they were. Like I mentioned, they were unbeaten. They were top of the league after 10 games and everything was going great and people were riding high and singing Big Ange's praises. And then when everything kind of went to hell in the Chelsea game, the fans were not really understanding that this team had been rocked. And I think that we as fans get a little bit of over our skis with expectations when things go really well. If you look back to preseason predictions from a lot of Spurs fans, you'd be baffled at what some Spurs fans actually thought was going to happen to this team after hiring Ange Postecoglou. There were predictions of 11th, of 12th. There were predictions of 15th that I saw out there. Like there were a lot of fans who were not excited, especially in the wake of obviously losing Harry Kane and things didn't look great. But then after the 10 games, everyone was like, well, we're going to win the league. Obviously everyone was all pumped. Like the flip immediately got switched for fans and the expectations went through the roof. So all in all, the fact that the team finished 5th and a lot of fans are still like, there is a very decent sized faction of Spurs fans who are still Ange skeptical to me. And that's why I'm dinging them so much, because I don't see any reason after the last couple of managers to try and chase off another manager when this guy has come in and proven that he has the goods. So for me, I'm way more excited about Ange than I think most Spurs fans. I wouldn't say most Spurs fans. I would say it's probably more like a 70-30 in favor. But there is that decent sized faction that is like, well, this guy didn't adapt his game during this game, so it shows he's not ready for the Premier League. And look, part of that's going to come with a guy who has never managed above the Scottish League in terms of, talent wise, but like he's 58. They didn't hire some 36-year-old, who's fresh off the pitch. Like he's been around for a long time. And I think there's a lot of fans who aren't willing to give him the rope because of that, which I also find just very weird.
Interesting. I guess I didn't think of that because he's older, that because I mean he still has to make the transition to the Premier League and learn how that game is, and every manager has to have that moment where they're a little headstrong, they think that their ball is the only ball. And Pep, his first year, he didn't win the Premier League. Weird, in fact, we're fourth. And it wasn't the most fun experience. There was a lot of problems with the playing from the back. That was mostly the players. And once he got certain players in, like once he got Ederson in, huge change. Stones in, bigger. First it was Gundo because that was his first, but Gundo in, slight change because he didn't do the best first year. And then Ederson, Ruben Diaz. Once Ruben Diaz came in, we were on it. But it's interesting just the differences that players can make. And I think the supporters will figure it out, honestly. And we'll finish off. Oh, actually, what were you about to say?
No. I was just gonna. I think so too. And look, I think the fans once there's also just a faction of our fans that are very anti-ownership, which I think a lot of people have probably heard about. Like they don't like the owner, and it's weird because this faction of the supporters are very vocal, and it's frustrating to have to deal with that portion of them too because they are so vocal. So that's why I'm a little bit more. I'm also like very contrarian when it comes to fan opinions. You got to know that about me, Crunk. Like I'm not the guy that like I'm not the hoot and holler and call for people's jobs. It's like I'm very much like observe and react to what I've seen type of fan and I've it's just kind of who I am. But like that part of the fan base too is one that I'm just like I gotta ding them a little because you guys got to calm down a little bit. Like this, they built a new stadium. They've done so many things. Like there's been so much progress off the pitch from the club, and like they've got their problems. They've got their PR issues at times. They don't do everything by the book and the way it should be done. But like for the most part, this is a pretty damn well run club. And while the on the pitch results are to me the most important thing, and they haven't been there, the fans that are dinging them for the off the stuff, I think, are really just mad at the on the field stuff, and they take it out on the off the field stuff. So it's just that's the other part of it for the supporters for me, where they get real vocal, and I mean that's another reason I'm so excited about this summer is because I do think Spurs are going to splash a little bit of cash because they now have a little bit of built up cash from this stadium being open for a few years now and things really starting to hum on the financial side. I'm not going to bring up any financial stuff with a City fan, like to get too involved, but like, we don't have that kind of money. So we've kind of got to, like the way they run the club is to earn it through that in that way. And spend it when they see fit. They run a little bit more of a tighter ship in terms of the financials than other clubs do. So I'm just like, I'm ready for those fans to be piped down by the club actually using some of that capital now that they have and going out and making some important moves to grow this thing further.
And shout out to Levy because him and his wanting to argue $5, $10, $15 million. He's the reason why Harry Kane never came to City, and I was about to like shit myself if that had happened. I did not want that to happen. I was those people being like, please don't. So when he wanted just that little too much, 150, I was like, let's go. And so at least Harry Kane got to go to a club where he won all the trophies and had all the success. Oh, wait a second, never mind. They didn't have any of that success. I'm sorry.
I love it. That was for Caroline. That was my dig at Caroline being a Bayern
I'm here
fan.
For it. Trust me. We have
in
a
all
good
seriousness,
laugh.
in all seriousness, the Harry Kane thing was and that's a perfect example of like some of the off the field stuff almost bleeding into the on the field stuff where the fans were just like, you just let the club legend walk. And it's like, that was a really awkward breakup for the club and literally a club legend, the leading goal scorer. Probably look, I don't go back into the annals of history with this club because I'm only so many years old, but like probably the best player this club has ever seen, if not one of the 2 or 3 best players the club has ever seen. And he just kind of waltzed out the door. That was the other thing with the supporters where it was like a little awkward this season. So
yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
And speaking of Louis, rate his and his staff's job over this 23-24 campaign.
I think this, along with, bringing in the manager, which I think was a really important decision for this ownership and this board. I think, honestly, and this will piss off a lot of those people who are anti-ownership, but like, I think they deserve a lot of credit for kind of realizing some of the mistakes of the last few seasons. They brought in the two previous managers that they brought in were not Tottenham managers. They were Chelsea and Manchester United and Juventus managers. Like they weren't Tottenham managers. Mauricio Pochettino, while he would, came over from Southampton, he was a Tottenham manager. He was that type of manager, and I think still is. And I think he's done an impression of a PSG and Chelsea manager since he left Tottenham. But I don't think he's obviously not had the success there that even he did at Tottenham without winning anything. Like he had more success because he was a Spurs manager. And I think ownership deserves a lot of credit for finding another Spurs manager in Ange Postecoglou. So I give them loads of credit for that alone. Aside from that, what they've also done is they've removed a lot of the footballing decisions from the ownership group. They've done a really good job of bringing in an entirely new recruitment staff and system, and a plan in place with a director of football in Johan Lange to make the football decisions. A lot of those decisions were being made by any number of people, and it was always a big mystery as to who was bringing in players and who was this team's main recruiter to make the decisions, and how much say did the actual manager have. Going back to Pochettino, like Pochettino always complained about being the manager, or being the coach, not the manager. Like he would not refer to himself as the manager, he was the coach toward the end of that, because he was not making a lot of the players' decisions. They were club signings, they weren't manager signings. So the fact that the manager is now working with a director of football in sync, and the ownership has kind of moved out of it for the most part, they're going to provide the funds to make transfers, but they're not going to be making as many of the football decisions. And I think that's another tick in the box of the ownership group. So I give them a lot of credit. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, they're just running the football club as a business really well. They're running they built this new stadium. It's glorious. I went over, like I said, last March, spent a week over there, went to 2 matches. Like, it's a Mecca. It's beautiful. And it's completely, I spoke to a lot of people over there about the neighborhood, and know people, have gotten to know people through the club who have lived in that neighborhood their whole lives, and it's revitalized that neighborhood in North London. And it's kind of it's an amazing thing to see just a massive, beautiful brand new stadium in this neighborhood, which is not new. It's an older neighborhood. It's, there's a lot of small businesses in the area that have benefited from this as well, from this whole revitalization of the area. And it's really, really awesome to see. And it's brought a lot of prosperity to that region in North London, and it's kind of beautiful to see. And I think the club deserves a lot. They do a lot of great things in the community, and it's part of the reason I love the club, is all these things that surround the club, and the way that it's run, and the way that it's part of that community. So I think the club does a really good job with all of those things, and I'm just glad they're they're letting football people make the football decisions, and they're doing all the off the field stuff that we want them to do.
Yeah, let's go. Well, Shady Gang, one more time for the one time. Give it up. Thank you for your time and your honesty about Tottenham. Obviously, I hope the best, but not too much success, because I would love to lift a 5th trophy in a row.
Of course you would. No question.
But obviously, since we only won the 1 trophy, so FA Cup, Carabao, go crazy about those. Europa, all the
we'll
best.
Take anything, man. We'll take anything. I'll tell you at this point. And honestly, Europa is a good shout, because that is one competition that I think will be really, really cool to win. And I hope we are able to build out a squad this year that can actually play those extra games, because not only is it added European games, but it's even more European games than it used to be with the new format. So
I know, right?
It's going to be a lot of extra football for a lot of tired legs. So hopefully we can build out a squad this summer that can go after some hardware next season, and we're looking forward to it.
Let's go. Well, Shady Gang, I will be back soon in a day or 2 with a new episode with a new most dope guest talking football. So, until then, you know the vibes. Shady Gang, Shady Gang, Shady Gang.